5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
So right now they are currently loading the stage 2 liquid oxygen. That's what the bottom that says S2 locks load. That's the stage 2 liquid oxygen load. So the next thing coming up is called the engine chill. So what that is, because they use fuel that's just so cold, right? It's cryogenically chilled. Very, 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 very cold fuel and liquid oxygen. They need to chill down the engines a little bit, like slowly before launch, because if you were to just suddenly pump that fuel into those engines at very high speeds, which is what they need, things are going to break, because you're going to get that cryogenic shock. It's just going to break things. So a few minutes prior to launch, or a minute or two before launch, they will run some fuel through those engines to chill them down. Then when you go to launch, you don't break anything. So those are all the engines. You got 27 engines on this rocket, because it's 3 Falcon 9 rockets all stuck together. The center, and like I said, the center core stage is like an extended version of the regular Falcon 9 rocket. And then the 2 side boosters are just standard Falcon 9 first stage. So that's a really good view of all the engines on the bottom of the Falcon Heavy. So the Falcon Heavy rocket is the world's most powerful active rocket. As soon as the Starship, which is made by SpaceX, launches, and when NASA's SLS rocket finally goes up successfully, they will be the most powerful rockets in the world. But currently, Falcon Heavy is the world's most powerful rocket. What's up, kiddo, my boy? Welcome. A little bit early this morning just to cover this launch. I totally forgot about it until this morning. I woke up at like 6, and I was like, I had all these notifications about the launch, and I'm like, oh, fuck, there's a launch today. I totally forgot. I knew I had something else I had to cover this week, and I couldn't remember what it was. So yeah, I was like, oh shit, there's a rocket launch this morning. We haven't had a Falcon Heavy launch in like 4 years. Or even longer now. I don't remember if it's 2017 or 2016, I can't remember. So yeah, it's been a long time since they launched one of their Tesla Roadsters into space.
Now, above the second stage is where our payload is safely
so there's the payload stage right there. That's the fairing.
The payload from aerothermal loads, heating, and contamination during ascent.
So once they get to a certain altitude past max Q, they will expose the payload. They no longer need it. Is this one going, or is it a test? This one is going to geosynchronous orbit. It is launching a classified mission for the Space Force. So
now let's learn a little bit more from our customer about the mission at hand.
They're not going to be able to say much. It's a classified mission, but sure, let's go to our customer, the Space Force, which is a terrible name, by the way. Space Systems Command. That's a better name.
Space every day. To support our way of life,
yeah, it's probably like a spy satellite or something.
Financial systems, weather tracking, and power grids, as well
it won't say that it is, but it probably is.
Our US military is the strongest.
So I think the next launch we should be covering, if it all goes well, is the launch of SLS, NASA's next moon rocket. That was supposed to go off 2 months ago, but they ran into some problems, so they had to push that back. So that should be the next big rocket launch. Other than after that, the next big launch should be Starship, when they launch that from Texas, from Boca Chica. Just one more junk out of the space. You are not wrong. You are not wrong. Yep, you're 100% correct, my friend.
Assured access to space. Procures launch services.
Yeah, I woke up at, like I said, I woke up at 6, and I was like, oh shit, I gotta cover this launch. Broski, what if I told you I could listen to your streams at my new job? Whoa, whoa, whoa! Hell yeah, dude. That's fantastic.
tactical and operational
I was wondering about that.
capabilities.
Do you like work by yourself, or do you have people that you work with, or are you just doing it all this work by yourself?
For the joint all-domain fight.
Which would be kind of cool, actually.
Space domain
She got a new
awareness,
job
combat power,
last week,
maximizing
I believe.
full characterization of space
She's super
using a wide
excited.
range of
Yeah, last
multi-domain
week. That's what I thought.
aspects by rapidly
I love how my
detecting
chat is filled with VIPs.
our
That's
nation
funny.
and allies, which enables decisive action in the space domain.
Those are good views there. We'll get to see all that.
Positioning,
The only thing we won't get to see, because this is a classified mission, we won't get to see the payload after the fairings are released. A lot of times they'll show the, like, the payload release. We won't get to see the payload. We won't get to see the payload release because it's a classified mission. But we should get to see everything else. We'll get to see the fairings released, so we won't get to see what's in there. You do it all by yourself? Nice, dude. That would be awesome. I would love that.
Not on our watch.
I don't work well with other people. No, that's not true. It'd be super fun to just do your own thing. Do your own thing.
Systems integration, unity of effort,
Nice.
and digital engineering ecosystem.
Yeah, you can use the background audio of Twitch and listen to my streams.
Space starts here.
Wish I had closer friends who cook and bake. There we go. So the screen on the right, that is launch control at the Cape. NASA's launch control at the Cape. And then on the left, that is in Hawthorne, California. That is SpaceX's factory and mission control on the left. You can see all the engineers and staff there in the back on the other side of the glass. So hanging right above... Hello there, Deggy. I was going to say hanging right above their heads is a Dragon capsule, but they switched screens too quickly. We get to decide how everything is done. It's completely Salem's Kitchen. Yes, that's awesome. You need to get a little sign that says, "Welcome to Salem's Kitchen." What up, Deggy? That's a much better view than what we currently have of the Cape. There it is. It's a little foggy. So like I said before, they just finished the engine chill. So for those of you who weren't here for that, to explain that, the engine chill is because they use cryogenically chilled fuel, which is very, 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 very cold. They have to add a little bit of fuel to the engines to chill them down, so at launch, they don't break anything. You don't get that cryogenic shock. So the next thing coming up on the list there at the bottom of the screen is strong back retract. So that the strong back is what holds the rocket upright, and actually, so when they ship these rockets to the launch pad, when SpaceX does, the rocket's laying on its back, and so they use the strong back to lift it up, and then right before launch, they will retract that little arm about 5 degrees backwards, back, so it allows the rocket room to launch. So now she's talking about what they use to actually ignite the engines. It's a special formula that is pumped in right before the engines ignite to help ignite the engines. It's basically like starter fluid, if you guys know what that is in the old engines when you'd spray it into the carburetor. I remember when I was a little at my grandparents' winter condo in Florida, I saw a launch from their condo. That's awesome. I have yet to go to a launch. I want to go to a launch so bad. But I have yet to go. Yeah, so this is the first Falcon Heavy launch in 3 years. I couldn't remember if it was 3 or 4. But yeah. The formula. Give me the formula. There's a Falcon Heavy launch scheduled for January, the first week of January. Maybe I could swing that. That would be amazing. Be able to pay to go down and watch the rocket. I would love to see a rocket launch. It's one of my bucket list items. So you can see this strong back on the right there, just retracted a little bit. It's still got a little bit more to go.
This time to decrease forces on the rocket structure overall. The vehicle at that point in time will be much lighter.
So like I said before, this is the world's most powerful rocket, at least until SpaceX's Starship launches or NASA's SLS rocket launches. Those two are miles more powerful than the Falcon Heavy. But again, so those of you who weren't here earlier, this is the Falcon Heavy, which is essentially 3 Falcon 9 rockets stuck together. The center stage there, that's the core stage. That is essentially like a stretched version of a standard Falcon 9 rocket. And then the 2 side boosters there are Falcon 9 first stage rockets, all stuck together. The center core stage and the 2 side stages can all be recovered. But however, on this launch, due to the mission profile and the specific orbit that's needed for the payload, they will not be recovering the core stage, but the 2 side stages, the 2 side boosters, will be landing back at the Cape simultaneously as long as everything goes well. It's a very cool sight to see 2 rocket stages come back and land themselves. Oh, you'll see plenty with the fog, believe me. Believe me, when this thing launches, we'll have no problem seeing it. We might have a problem seeing the landing of the 2 boosters, but it depends on where the cameras are and where the fog actually is. So a little bit ago, before everybody kind of showed up, the fog did release a little bit, but now it's gotten thick again. So the next stage there on the bottom of the screen, that's startup. So what that is they'll transfer the power from the ground to the rocket. So the rocket will be running on its own internal power. Basically unplug it from the wall, essentially. Falcon Heavy flight computers are taking control of the countdown. So now the rocket is doing its thing. The launch computers are now in control. 45 seconds. I think it was like 2 years ago. They did a Starship test down in Boca Chica. And it was foggy like this, and it looks so cool. Because it came back to land, and everyone's like, where is it? Where is it? Did it land? You had to, like, wait for the fog to clear. It was pretty cool. 15 seconds. Of course, the fog comes in right at launch time. Come on, baby. Yes! Let's go! That blue flame. Wow! Let's go! Rocket is now pitched down range. That means that it's now pitched over, because if you launch a rocket straight up in the air, it's going to come straight back down. So as soon as you launch, you have to pitch over to get to the right azimuth, to go to the right orbit. There we go. There it is. So the next thing on the timeline there is max Q. That is your maximum dynamic pressure or maximum aerodynamic pressure on the rocket. So they'll actually throttle down the engines just a little bit to take a little bit of force off the rocket as it goes through max Q. And once it goes through max Q, then they will throttle the engines back up. Looks like a dildo. Yeah, I mean, all rockets kind of look like dildos, to be fair.
All right, there we just heard the call out. That is the moment of
gone through max Q. So as we get higher and higher in altitude, that the big rocket plume will actually get larger and larger because there's less air pressure on it. So you'll see it like fan out and get wider and wider and wider and wider and wider.
Prepping the MVAC engine.
Vehicle is following a nominal trajectory.
Yes.
We will will flow a little bit of
Oh, look at those views.
oxygen through the turbo pumps
It's
on
beautiful.
that MVAC in preparation for the full flow of the super chilled propellant.
Let's go.
Shots there of each side booster on the right-hand side of your screen.
So the next thing coming up here will be the two side boosters will actually jettison, and then they will make their way back to the Cape. They'll do like a what's called a boost back burn. So they'll fly back towards the Cape and get in position to come in for landing. So it should be coming up here in a few seconds where they'll jettison the side boosters. Booster engine cutoff. Yep. There they go. There go the side boosters. So now they will do what's called a boost back burn. They'll basically flip the rocket around, and then they'll take off back towards the Cape. So now you have your just main core stage now is continuing into orbit. So the next thing coming up is called MECO. That's main engine cutoff. So that's going to essentially be the separation of the first and second stage. So your first stage will jettison, will separate, it'll go back and burn up in the atmosphere, and then your second stage will ignite and continue on into its specific orbit. Like I said, normally a Falcon Heavy launch, they can recover all 3 first stages, but due to the mission profile and the extra power that's needed and the altitude of the orbit, they will not be able to recover the first stage. It will not have enough fuel to either land back at the Cape or land on a barge in the Atlantic. So this is the first and second stage. This will be separating here in just a second. There it goes. There's your second stage just ignited. And then the camera is currently on the first stage. Oh, lost the center core camera. So on the screens on the side there, those are the first 2 stages. Those are the boost stages. We've got some condensation on the camera lens. I can't imagine why, from all that fog earlier. Normally you can see this pretty clearly, but it's a little foggy. It should clear up, though, as it gets closer into the atmosphere. That should burn off. But right now it's a little hard to see. So they are currently making their way back. You can see the little reaction control thrusters, the little puffs of white there. Those are just basically like a compressed air. And they help orient the rocket while it's in space, because the big grid fins that are on the side of the rocket can't be used until you're back in the atmosphere, because there's no air, so they're not going to work. So you have to use the little reaction control thrusters to do small, minute changes to the rocket's orientation. You can see the grid fins there on the left-hand side of those 2 right-hand screens. Those grid fins, once it's in the atmosphere, will help orient the rocket and steer it. So far, a good launch. How early is it for me? It is 8:47 a.m.
This allows us to utilize
all vehicles continue to follow nominal trajectories.
Allows us to utilize all the propellant on board and deliver
so far so good
for the payload delivery.
As long as the 2 boost stages don't run into any problems, we should be good.
Is a live view of Hawthorne mission control.
So hanging over those guys' head there on the far left, that little half circle sticking up there, that is a Dragon cargo capsule. There's a SpaceX Dragon cargo capsule hanging there above their head. That's a used one. This is where they make all the rockets for SpaceX. This is also their mission control. We have a religious holiday today in Germany. Oh, really? Nice.
Standing
Nice,
by
nice,
for
nice.
side booster entry burn.
All right, so they should be now. They're doing their re-entry burn to come back through the atmosphere. So you'll see the engines light up.
There we heard the call out that the booster entry burn has
There we
begun.
go. There they are. There they are. Ha ha ha. There they are. One was a little bit ahead of the other. There, now you can see the cameras better. There we go.
The ice on those cameras are now clearing.
So now they're gonna basically fly like darts
All vehicles continue to follow nominal trajectories.
back towards the Cape until they get right near the ground, and then
So
they'll
that re-entry burn
they'll,
has concluded.
fire their engines.
We're expecting the landing burn to begin in about 30 seconds.
Yep. So now they'll do their landing burn in about 25 seconds. Look at that thing. Look at that thing. Look at that big long dart just flying back. What a great view.
Views of the booster
Oh, what a great view.
landing zone 1 and 2.
That was awesome. Like a big
We can see the grid fins there.
lawn dart.
Boosters transonic.
Now they are now transonic. It means they're going slower than the speed of sound.
Terminal guide.
Oh, there it is on the left.
We can see those grid fins steering the
You
booster
can't
to
zoom
a
out fast
precise
enough.
landing.
Here we go. Come on, baby.
Attempting
Booster landing
landing.
burn.
Booster landing burn. There's number 1. Number 2. Come on, baby. It looks fake. There's the twin sonic booms. Come on, there's 1. Come on. Come on. Yes. Yes. Let's go. Let's fucking go, dude.
Landing zone 1 and landing zone 2. What an incredible sight.
Parking orbit.
With these two side boosters, this marks the 100th
Let's fucking go. God, that's awesome. Never gets old.
This is the 21st landing at landing zone 1 and the 4th landing at
You essentially just watched a 10-story building land itself.
And with
It went to
successful
space and came
consummation
back
of
in
our
less
side
than 9
boosters
minutes
landing,
and landed
that will bring
itself.
today's webcast to a close.
What?
We'd like
I
to
mean,
thank the United
ridiculous.
States Space
So
Force
because
for
this is a
trusting us with
classified
today's
mission,
Thank you
we
the
won't
range
get to
and
watch
FAA
any
for
more
licensing
of
today's launch.
this
I would
mission.
like to thank all of our
Normally
viewers
they'll
for
show
tuning in
like
for an
the
exciting
second
morning.
stage
Now, if you're
and the
interested,
payload
head over to our
release
website
and all
social
that
media
stuff.
platforms for updates
Um,
on our next missions and
because the
milestones.
engine or
Hope to
the
see you
landing
soon. Enjoy
legs
the rest of your day.
are designed if there's a little bit too much weight to like crush a little bit to absorb some of the landing, and so sometimes when it lands it might land a little hard, and so those legs are designed to like absorb the impact, and so sometimes it doesn't always land exactly straight up and down, so that's why it looks like it's kind of sitting at an angle. It may have come in a little hot because the way they land their rockets, hang on. The way they land their rockets, it essentially just like plops itself back on the ground, as opposed to like coming in and like lighting the rocket right at the ground and like slowing the rocket down and then setting it down. They kind of just come in and like burn, boom, and just kind of like slam it down on the ground. So those legs are actually designed to be replaced. They actually have a core crush material in them. So sometimes it lands a little hard and it'll sit a little bit cockeyed. Basically just big shock absorbers, yeah. I can't remember what I think the proper term for the way they land their rockets is called like a hover slam, where it's like you come down and you light the engine right at the last second, just enough to slow the rocket down, and it kind of just boom, and it kind of just like plops itself on the ground. Other rockets like the New Shepard from Blue Origin, that rocket comes in and like as it comes down, it gets close to the surface, lights its engine, and then like basically stops all of its momentum going down, and then stops that momentum and then throttles the engine and then sets it down. SpaceX doesn't do that with this rocket. It's just kind of like you have just enough boost at the end to slow it down enough, and it just kind of just plops it down, like slams it down on the ground. So I think that is it.